So here we are, another mailbag session. I'm not going to show you out the window because there's not an awful lot to see, but I am as north as you can get in the UK, well actually in Scotland, without actually being in Iceland. So that gives you some idea of where I am or at the moment. And it's cold and it's wet and it's a little bit miserable out there. And my hair is dreadful. But here we are. I'm going to do a mailbag session from here. Remember, these are questions and comments that you leave on the channel that I'm going to attempt to answer for you. First one comes from the Seabone 1979. And they write, let's be honest with ourselves, we're probably more than likely going to buy the Jupiter-X. Well, speak for yourself. To justify this, think of what it would look like with its big brother underneath it on the rack. So this is the Jupiter-80 and the Jupiter-X sitting up on top of each other. Absolutely fantastic mental image, cosmetically speaking, of course. And I have to be honest, I haven't really thought about the Jupiter-X sitting on top of my Jupiter-80. But given that both machines are very, very similar in terms of sort of the colorations and the buttons and the way they look, I do think it will be a very nice mental image setup. But it does not justify why I should be buying a Jupiter-X. You know, I'm standing by my my laurels and saying I did the mailbag, which this comment is related to, which is why buy the Jupiter-X. And I still have to see if the Jupiter-X will fit into my workflow in my studio, or whether it is a toy. And I don't really want to be dropping two and a bit £1,000 on a toy. I know I refer to my synthesizers as coming from the toy shop, but they have to give me something for me to buy them. So they're either legacy tech and on my bucket list, or they're giving me something that I want. Now, the only thing at the moment I think I want with the Jupiter-X is the arpeggiator, because I think that function looks very, 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 very good. And I'm also waiting to see what other instruments they put on ZEN-Core that then arrive on the Jupiter-X, whether you have to purchase them or whether they give them away as part of a firmware upgrade. I don't know. But either way, that's kind of my purchasing decision. So I am going to be strong, and I am going to justify why I'm going to buy this synthesizer, and I'm not just going to be beholden to the Roland marketing material. However, Roland, if you did want to give me a Jupiter-X so that I could actually do a video about the Jupiter-X, please contact me on the channel. Contact details below. Bye-bye. Next one comes from Digital Diesel. Thank you for this post. So, the info regarding the PCM samples is in the manual. Question mark. Don't know, I haven't seen a manual yet, so I can't comment on that. I thought the VX engine used PCM samples. As I was corrected about that, worked in the past. Are you explaining that all the engine models use PCM samples? Is that correct? So, what I understand about how ZEN-Core works, and this one was in response to the what the hell is ZEN-Core SMR I did. But what I understand about how ZEN-Core works is that effectively the tones are PCM samples, and then on top of that you then get manipulation to allow you to actually modify those tones. But you're not modifying the generation of the tone, you're modifying, effectively it's like after tone generation modifications. And to this point, nobody from Roland has come back and corrected me. And I know that they do watch this channel because I've had responses directly from Roland about stuff that has been said. So the fact that no one's corrected me, and until I am corrected, I will stand by the stance that the ZEN-Core engine is a PCM sample based, or the ZEN-Core engine is PCM sample based at its core. So the next one comes from Ray Mayer. Don't get your hopes up on thinking this sounds decent, lol, it's pretty bad. The rack looks prettier than it sounds. I guess that it was good for its time, but not even close to today's standards. The MKS20 kissed its butt. So this was in response to introducing the Yamaha TX1P that I picked up many years ago. In fact, actually it's 18 months ago I did the video about it, and it was kind of I can't remember what the circumstances are, but I know it was a pun. It wasn't anything more than a pun, and I have to agree and be honest that the sounds of the TX1P are not the best in the world, but they kind of have their place in terms of what if you're trying to do certain genres of music. The MKS20 by far does blitz the TX1P, but the MKS20 was aimed at a different market. And it was, it was effectively the rack mount of the RD1000 stage piano, and that was at the time held up to be one of the best stage pianos about at that point in time. So, it was a different market. What I have found with the TX1P is that you can improve the experience, and I use it quite often running through an effects unit or more than one effects unit sometimes to change the sound. And put other stuff on it. That works quite well, but it's good for certain situations. I keep threatening with this one to do a piano off between the modules, because I have got quite a few piano modules now, including looking at something like the Kronos Berlin Grand. I keep thinking about doing a playoff to say, look, this is what the modern synthesizer workstation can give you, but this was what was around at the time, so you can see what the difference is between the two. I keep threatening to do it. What I need to do is I really need to sit down and get some pieces recorded from a MIDI perspective, and then I can then get all the units back up to film. And it's just time, and plus unplugging them and getting them back up to the studio from the studio to do the filming process. So it is coming. I promise I will be doing this in the new year, and then you can see what all these modules actually sound like with the same piece of music being played on each. And the final one in this section of the mailbag from Captain Crunch. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, if anyone's interested, it's also a MIDI filter. So this is in response to the Roland A-110. Now, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, an A-110 was a unit. Roland did a series of studio units, I suppose is the easiest way to do it. Talk about it in the sort of 80s when MIDI was at its prime, and those studio units were all about sort of looking at the actual MIDI that was going up and down the cables, because it was very difficult at that point in time to actually work out what was communicating with what and on what channel. So what Roland did, now there was a number of other manufacturers did it, but Roland seemed to have sort of the units that everybody seems to refer to. That Roland issued a series of these units, and what the A110 was you could set it to a channel and it would tell you what notes were being played. And it's very good at visually debugging a MIDI problem. So if you've got if you're trying to get one keyboard to talk to another keyboard and it's not working, well, how do you know the MIDI's getting there in the first place? Especially if the keyboard that you're talking to does not have any visual representation on the actual surface of the keyboard that tells you it's receiving MIDI. And a lot of keyboards, a lot of legacy keyboards, and still a lot of keyboards nowadays, do not have visual representation that they actually are receiving a MIDI signal. So what the A110 gives you is if you press a C, if you press C3, it shows up on the display on the A110, and effectively you can press that button and you can make sure that there is at least MIDI arriving at the destination keyboard, and therefore it's the keyboard setup. It's not the fact that it's not transmitting on the channel you think it's not transmitting on, if that makes any sense. So that's what the A110 does. Yes, it is a MIDI filter, but I think from my it's also a MIDI splitter, because you can have 1 in and 4 out, I think, and I'm doing this from memory at the moment. So you can actually split the MIDI signal from the sort of master keyboard out to 4 slaves, which helps in the daisy chaining back in the day. But from my perspective, I really do use it as a debugger to say I am sending MIDI on channel 2 to that particular target instrument, and it's not playing. And why isn't it playing? Because I'm transmitting on MIDI channel 3. that's the reason why I use this device. Extremely useful for debugging errant MIDI in your studio. If you liked the content of the video you've just seen, please give it a thumbs up. It just helps the YouTube algorithm with its selection process. If you want to leave a comment, please feel free to do that as well. Down below somewhere should be the ability to do that. I do try to respond to all the comments that are raised on the channel. Sometimes it takes me a few weeks because of what I'm doing, and I'm getting more and more comments and questions raised on the channel, so it just takes sometimes a little bit of time to do a bit of research. If you want to be notified when I put more rants, mailbags and videos about this sort of legacy tech and even modern tech on the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified by YouTube when stuff happens. I try to publish at least 2 times a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. Until next time, bye-bye.